إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. صل على محمد وآل محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. صل على محمد. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. صل على محمد وآل محمد. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. First and foremost, I advise myself for taqwa, consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every action. Then I advise each of you for taqwa in every action. I also give my condolences to all of you on the occasions which are upon us, that if we are attentive to the Islamic calendar, that according to the calendar, this day is the day of the Shahadat of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. and his grandson, the master of the Shabab Ahl Jannah, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, alayhi afdal salatu wassalam. And also, according to some of the narrations, that the Shahadat of Imam Rida alayhi afdal salatu wassalam is also in this time. With that, I would say that it is a blessing for all of us to have such great examples to remember, to commemorate, if we are commemorating their shahada, or to celebrate their lives. And in either case, whenever these events come upon us, it is a moment for us to reflect upon their lifestyle, reflect upon who they are, reflect upon the lessons that they have taught us in life. And one of the greatest lessons that we can gain from them, I believe it is summarized in this verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, for which I only recited the latter half of that verse. And inshallah, we will actually use this verse for both of the khutbahs. I just want to read the entire verse now, and then also I'll read it in the next khutbah. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, Ya, in the beginning, he says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu kunu qawamina lillah shuhada bil qist. All you who believe, be steadfast for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be steadfast in his obedience and be the witnesses for justice. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. So do not let the malice or your malice against a people should not prompt you to avoid doing justice. Do justice. That is closer and nearer to taqwa, to consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ittaqullah, wattaqullah, inna Allaha khabirun bima ta'malun. Have consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surely Allah is aware of what you do. I just want to focus on this idea, this concept of taqwa. Just for this khutbah, as is recommended also in the khutbah of Jum'ah to speak about taqwa, to be conscious of the lesson. And as we have commemorated the shahadat of Imam Hussein, alayhi afdal salam, the shuhada Karbala, and then now we are coming into another phase of commemoration. There's no doubt that when we look at the lifestyle of Ahlul Bayt, they are the symbols of taqwa. They are the symbols of guidance. As Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba himself, he said, وَلَا أَمْرِي إِنَّا لَأَعْلَامُ الْخُدَى وَمَنَارُ التُّقَى. He says, I swear by my life. In other words, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, he's putting his life at stake, that if I am not, or if the Ahlul Bayt has not been a symbol of guidance for the Ummah, if they have not been a symbol of taqwa, consciousness of Allah for this Ummah, then take him to task on Yawm al-Qiyamah. This is the meaning that he said when he's saying, La amri, but my life, I swear by my life. It is almost like that event when we say that the event of the Mubahila, where the Prophet, he comes forth with himself, Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Fatima al-Zahra. They're putting their lives on stake that, look, if what we're saying is wrong, then call down the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This statement as well, where the Imam, he says, La'amri, that by my life, that if, that we are, meaning the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim a'lamul huda, that they are symbols of guidance. That where else would you look for guidance? Where else would you look for an example in people who have followed the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, who have implemented the Quran in every aspect of their life? And the Imam is saying that if this is not such, then you complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against it. So this is something very weighty to understand. This is something that we must contemplate, that when we reflect upon the lives of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, it is not a simple thing. It is a very weighty thing. And also there is a very weighty responsibility to come with that. Because those of us who follow Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, let me say this. Those of us who commemorate their lives, listen to the stories of their lives, understand how they're interacting with others, we have no excuse to say that, oh, why haven't we interacted in the same way? Why haven't we implemented that same lifestyle in our own life? That is a part of the responsibility that comes with being those folks who we say that, yes, we are the Shia of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. That is a part of the responsibility which we also see that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he stated that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him or gave him an oath, a responsibility and task. And when he interacted, he dialogued with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, says, what was that task? He says that al-ahida ilayya fi aliyan ahdan. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the Prophet of Allah promise to him with regards to Ali, with regards to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam. So the Prophet of Allah, he said, Ya Rab, bayyinhu li. What is this promise? What is this oath that you are holding me by with regards to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he told him, Inna aliyan rayatul huda wa imamu awliyai wa nuru man ata'ani wa huwa kalimatu allati alzamtuha al-muttaqeen. That promise that the Prophet he made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that oath with regard to Amir al-Mu'mineen, was to present this understanding of Imam Ali, that he is the flag, the standard bearer of guidance. He is the leader, the Imam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's friends, of his awliya. He is the light and the lantern, the one who illuminates the path of those who are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, وَهُوَ كَلِمَةُ الَّتِي أَلْزَمْتُهَا الْمُتَّقِينَ. And he is the word. In other words, he is the pillar. He is the example that he has set forth for the muttaqeen. Anyone who wants to be among the muttaqeen, those who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they have to follow the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And when we look at the example that Amir al-Mu'mineen he followed, it was an example of Rasulullah. It was that very example of Rasulullah. So by following the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're following the example of Rasulullah. You're following the example of the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, he states in Surah Al-Fath, verse 26, وَأَلْزَمْهُمْ كَلِمَةَ التَّقْوَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands his prophet, he says that make your ummah, connect them, make them hold fast. Alzamhum, make it incumbent upon them that they are attached to kalimat al-taqwa. Of course, this kalimat al-taqwa in some of the rawayat, and also the tafsir says this kalimat al-taqwa is la ilaha illallah. But what we also understand from this dialogue between Rasulullah and Allah, this kalimat al-taqwa is also Amir al-Mu'mineen. And this is because he lived his life as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, lived his life by la ilaha illallah, by that principle of la ilaha illallah. And I'll just end in this tasbih of Imam Rida alayhi salam. What I wanted to do in this idea of taqwa, to see that how taqwa was a centerpiece of the life of Rasulullah, who we are commemorating his shahada, the life of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, who we are commemorating his shahada, and Imam Rida, who we are commemorating his shahada. And so we see, as Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba stated, that the Ahlul Bayt, they are the pillars, the standard bearers of guidance. They are the example of taqwa, of consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in this beautiful tasbih of Imam Rida that he would often recite, we see the consciousness with which the Ahlul Bayt they have regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A short, beautiful tasbih where the Imam, he says, Subhana man khalaqa al-khalq biqudrati. Glory be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has created or brought forth creation by his power. And this tasbih, that whenever we step outside our home, whenever we look at anything, and mashallah, today we are during the Jum'ah after a long time, and we are blessed to be on our campus in a very beautiful space. In fact, you see that sometimes in the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, one example of Imam Sadiq, where he put a rock in a place and says, this is where a masjid will be. And he prayed there the prayer as if he was praying in the masjid. But whenever we look at this creation, we should see the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhana man khalaqa al-khalq bi qudrati wa atqana ma khalaqa bi hikmati. And he has made this creation stable. He has fortified it with his wisdom. It is only by Allah's wisdom that the universe, it is the way it is. That our planet is a planet that is just perfect for life. That as the earth rotates, we don't fly off of this earth. We are stable upon this earth. وَوَضَعَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ مِنْهُ مَوْضِعَهُ بِعِلْمِهِ. And he has placed everything perfectly in its place by his knowledge. And placing everything perfectly in place, as we understand as well from some of these scholars, especially those scholars who are attentive to what we call logic and philosophy, that's the definition of justice, to place everything in its place. So even in this tasbih, Imam Rida alayhi salam is pointing towards Allah's qadra. When we look at this creation of his wisdom, when we look at this creation of his, the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we look and we observe the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhana man ya'lamu ka'inat al-a'yuni wa ma tukhfi as-sudur wa laysa kamithlihi shay' wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. And glory be to the one who knows everything, that nothing escapes the observation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows what every eye sees. He knows what every chest bears in its breast. That nothing is unknown to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our secret thoughts, our perhaps unworthy deeds, nothing is unknown. So with that, we should understand that we should be those individuals who are muttaqeen, who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not unconscious of us or unaware of us. Even our deepest, most secret, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's no one, no being like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is Sami' al-Basir, he is all seeing, all hearing, meaning that he is all knowing. And that is worthy for us as well, to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know that he is all knowing, so that we may also put our own affairs in order. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to guide us by the wisdom of his Quran and the wisdom of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, to make us among the muttaqeen, and truly those who Amir al-Mu'mineen and the A'immat al-Ma'asumeen, that they are our guide as they are A'immat al-Muttaqeen. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين الرسول المصدق المصطفى الأمجد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أولياء الله وأوصيائه وعلى أوصياء النبي وأولياء الله أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب والحسن بن علي والحسين بن علي وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المنتظر المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. First and foremost, I advise myself, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded in this verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, to be those who are witnesses for the sake of justice, to witness justice. And this is similar to verse 135 of Surah An-Nisa, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he commands the believers, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ بِالْقِسْطِ شُهَدَاءَ لِلَّهِ. Similar and parallel meaning. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ لِلَّهِ شُهَدَاءَ بِالْقِسْطِ. Just simply changing the order of two words. Be the establishers قوامين بالقسط, and bear witness for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nisa. Here, be those who are upright with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط, and be those who testify towards justice. In short, these are two verses that have a similar meaning, but at the same time, we can understand a few different aspects of our duty and our responsibility towards justice. On one hand, we have to be those who are working to establish justice. قوانين بالقسط. And as we move forward to establish justice, we have to bear witness to that justice. In other words, to maintain that justice. That if some aspect of justice has been established, then you make sure that it is continuous. That not that it's established for a moment and then it wanes and leaves. But no, make sure it is established and make sure that it is upheld. To be those qawamina bil qist and shuhada bil qist. So be the ones who erect and establish justice and be those who make sure that that justice is maintained. And this is a very important message for us. And I want to connect this also to our first khutbah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He says in the latter part of verse 8 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, He says, اعدلوا وهو أقرب للتقوى. He says, be those who are just, because this is closest to taqwa. That if we are to be the muttaqeen, then we have to be those who uphold justice. If we are to be the muttaqeen, then we must be those who bear witness and to make sure that justice is maintained. And to be those muttaqeen, then we are following the path of Rasulullah and of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim after salatu wasalam. And this is a very important message, especially for the moment in which we are in. And it is a moment which is close to the election time. And everyone is wondering, oh, should we vote for this person or that person? Some are asking, should we be Democratic? Should we be Republican? Let's see what the Imam says. Of course, the Quran, it says, be those who are qawamin bil qist, shuhada'i bil qist. And likewise, we find in the message of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim after salatu wasalam, particularly in the Ghurur al-Hikmah of the Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi after salatu wasalam, he says, Milatu siyasa al-adl. He says, your criterion for politics is justice. Your criterion for politics is not democratic or republic. It is not Umayyad. It is not Abbasid, Uthmani. It's not it. It is justice. And of course, we understand, even as our Imams, alayhim, as they lived quite often under authorities like the Umayyad government, the Abbasid government, they themselves engaged to the extent that they could in order to do what? To uphold the policies of the Umayyads or the Abbasids? No. To do whatever they could to make sure that justice was established. To be qawameen bil qist. Or that if there was something that was just, that was at least correct with what they were doing, to be shuhada bil qist, to make sure that that continues. This is the siyasa of the believer, that our criterion is justice. And when we look at justice, what does that look like? I will say, and this will just simply be one example, perhaps not maybe the only example or the best example, but this is one I know that weighs on many people's minds, because we get a lot of this information coming at us in the advertisements that okay, who is supporting the police, who are against the police, who are supporting Black Lives or against Black Lives, against, again, when we engage, our only criterion, as Imam Ali says, is justice. That what will bring about justice? And perhaps you won't be able to bring about justice in every aspect, in every, it's going to be impossible. But to the extent that you understand that what can I do in order to uphold justice, to make sure that justice is being established or maintained or continued. One of those things that we get, it comes at us quite often, and that is with regards to the George Floyd was a big incident in this particular year. In fact, when you look at one of the articles that you can find online by a CBS News reporter, Lee Cohen, she writes that in 2020, this is 1 year, roughly 771 people have been killed by police, unarmed. She writes that of them, 165 were African American, and that's only in 2020. She didn't go back further than that. There's another website as well. It's a blog, Abadan, the Abadan blog, and they actually report since, and that's again 2020. So this is the Trump era. In the Obama-Biden era, there was roughly about 71. It was roughly about 71. And the Abadan is simply taken in consideration as African Americans unarmed who were killed. 71. So twice as much in 1 year than in 8 years of Obama-Biden. And Abadan also says their list is incomplete. They didn't do a thorough research, just simply what they can gather. But also in that era, we find the tragic death of Oscar Grant, which is just as tragic as George Floyd. Oscar Grant was actually handcuffed. He was on the ground handcuffed and shot at point blank. And he said, the officer said, "Oh, I thought I was reaching my taser to tase him," but he was handcuffed on the ground. His hands are behind his back. Also, Eric Garner. These are things that happen. But in the Trump era, we find that, of course, many of the cases where you see during the Obama-Biden era, most of the cops they got off. In this era, at least, some of the officers were actually charged for the moment. And I would say, whether it's by the administration or it is the people who have their criterion as justice, that no, this cannot continue. So whatever our decision may be, your decision may be in the upcoming election, make sure that your criterion is justice. And any element of justice that has come about now, make sure that it is maintained, that it does not wane or fall to the side. Our politics, as Imam Ali alayhi salam, he further explains, and this is beautiful, he says, Siyasatul Adl. So what is the politics of a just individual, a just leader? Imam, he says, Siyasatul Adl Salah. There are three things that you look for in a just leader, someone who's leading by justice. He says, "Leanun fi hazm," that this individual is flexible in his judiciousness. Meaning that person is judicious. That person upholds the law, upholds what is right and just, but they are flexible, meaning that they are giving clemency when that clemency is due. Meaning, when I see someone, perhaps they did something wrong, and this is directly in line with what Imam Ali son, he wrote to Malik al-Ashtar. He says, yes, some people will make a mistake. He says, knowingly and unknowingly. He said, but be flexible with them. Have mercy for them. Some people, you want to give them another chance because then they will change their direction. They will become better people. So to be flexible while at the same time being judicious. واستقصاء في عدل. استقصاء في عدل can have two meanings. One meaning is that their justice is all encompassing. That meaning that they're not showing justice to one group of people and leaving another people without justice, leaving them oppressed and disenfranchised. Istiqsa'u adlin. So must be all encompassing in their justice. If istiqsa'u fi adlin also carries the meaning that a person is very astute, and a person is examining justice. In other words, they're examining how they're applying justice. So if you have a leader who is looking at his own application of justice, critiquing his own application of justice, and what it will lead to is this all-encompassing justice. Because if he will see that if he's falling short in one area, he needs to improve in that area, then he will or she will make that improvement. And the third criterion for politics of justice, as Imam Ali alayhi salatu says, he says, "Ifdalun fi qasdin." Ifdalun fi qasdin. That's, and what this means, and to just one English word for very difficult, but ifdalun fi qasdin, and their intentions, and their to be generous, in other words, their intentions and the way that they look upon their citizens, their subjects, the way they interact with them, what they want for their citizens and subjects, which will uplift their status and their state of being. So these are the criteria for politics of justice. To be judicious but flexible. To have an all-encompassing justice, not for just one group of people, but for every person under your authority, and to be generous in your outlook and your perspective for your city. So as we go forth to engage civilly in these next few weeks, let us keep that in mind. Let us keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that, yes, the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salam, they engaged civilly and tried their best to the extent that they could to bring about justice, or to uphold justice, to advocate for justice. And of course, that is the thing that led also to their Shahada. But nonetheless, they made that stance. They made that statement that was needed to be made. They took the action that was needed to be taken so that justice can be prevailed, even if it was just one small step towards justice. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He makes us among the people who are قوامين بالقسط وشهداء بالقسط قوامين لله وشهداء لله. Those who are establishing justice, upholding justice, and those who are steadfast for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who are bearing witness for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards justice. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins, to cover our shortcomings, to grant us our needs, to have mercy upon our deceased ones, to hear and have shafaat for all those who are ill among the mu'mineen and mu'minat, and those who may be stricken with COVID around the world. Also shafaat for our Ustad, and recovery for our Ustad, Sayyidina Haydar. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of Imam Zaman, make us among his helpers, his companions, and those who sacrifice our lives for him. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واقض حوائجنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم امواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من اعوانه وانصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لواء بحق محمد واله الطاهرين. Actually, space is fine. So there's only spacing and distance is good. This way. Even according to system. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليا وأبناه المعصومين حقا حقا حجج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. صلاة الجمعة. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله